the boss? I'm the boss.
Nah, I'm the boss.
He thinks he's the boss, but I'm definitely the boss.
Yeah, but I'm still the boss.
Taking control of business. I was born ready. Invoices sorted.
Expenses smashed.
Welcome to Dynamo 21, where we're going to explore how tech is leading the way in a challenging world. It's the 8th year we're holding this annual conference, and it's looking at the Northeast's entire tech sector. Now, because of what the world's been through in the past year or so, it couldn't be more relevant. Our region's put itself centre stage in so many areas because we've proved time and again that we have the talent, we have the ideas, we have the resources to be the solution, to be the future. Talking of which, you might have noticed our youngest audience member today, almost 5 months old. She enjoyed listening to last year's conference so much that she just had to be part of it this time. So a lot of you know about the joys of juggling homeworking and family. I'm sure you can add your stories to what is an epic book on this at the moment. So welcome to delegates from across the region and also those from outside the Northeast. If you head to the event chat button, which is on your left, just say hi, tell us where you are right now, tell us how fast that mercury is rising, fingers crossed. I know there are thunderstorms heading to some parts of the UK, but hopefully not us. And thank you once again to our headline partner, Sage, for supporting the conference once again. Thanks to the University of Sunderland as well, to Tom Bowler and to Red Hat for being our session partners. Dynamo itself is part funded by the European Regional Development Fund via the Innovation Super Network. And that allows us to move forward with all of our objectives, all of our projects and the work that we deliver. So if you haven't had the chance to read what is an epic menu of the day, what's on today? The highlights, a few of them for you. Dr. Murray Ellender of eConsult is going to be speaking just after 10 o'clock and also joining the health tech panel as well, straight after that presentation. So if you've got any questions for him, please put them in the Q&A tab and then I'll put them to Murray. We've got the Dynamo team looking right across that. Ben Aung from Sage is going to be here very soon. Really interesting stuff coming from that guy. At 1 p.m. as well, we have the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion panel chaired by Dynamo's EDI Innovation Lead, Faria Usman. I'm particularly interested in this one. It's entitled Choose Forward, Choose Inclusion, Choose Growing Together. Something that we're all getting involved in, but to what extent? There could be some brutal facts coming out of her research, I think. Then at 3:20, there's a panel looking at the sustainable future for our industry. So creating diverse pathways into tech careers. That's going to be chaired by Oliver Wyman's Kate Colson. And then we have a further great speaker just after 4 p.m. So you're going to have to stay tuned for all of this. Amanda Slight, who's from Amazon Web Services. If you're looking for a lesson in growth and adaptability, that's a company that could teach us a thing or two. I'm sure you'll agree. So hop in. Let's have a quick look at it so we can make the most of it. Functionality, if you're on a Windows machine, please use Chrome or Firefox. That's the most compatible. For those on Macs, use Chrome, Firefox, or the Safari browsers as well. Now, the Hopin platform has 5 main areas. So starting with the stage, that's where we are right now. And then our sessions. This is where the breakouts are. It's where the panel discussions are going to be. That means that's where we're going to be for almost all of today. Networking. We'll be having speed networking, and I mean speed, from 11:35, just a couple of minutes to get in there, and then again from 12:30 till 1. Expo, that's where you'll find the virtual exhibitor hall, which showcases all our event partners. If you were at the real time, real place event a few years ago, like I was, there were queues in a lot of the stands. So make sure you make a point of getting to the expo. All the sessions, all the talks, the panels are being recorded and they're going to be available next week. So like a physical event, the Hopin experience is self-directed. So there are wayfinding tools. There are signs as well to help you get easily around. You'll find the sessions for the day. If you ever get lost and wonder, where am I going, what am I doing? Just head to the reception area. It's all detailed there. And you can chat through the whole day on the event chat tab as well. And you can send direct messages, you can chat with your session room as well, just like a physical event. Now, the Dynamo team are keeping an eye across all your messages. So if you've got any tech queries, pop them there. If you've got any questions for the panels, put them under the sessions Q&A tab. And then either myself or the other chairs of those sessions will keep an eye. Hashtags. Use the hashtag Dynamo21. I'm about to get on there on LinkedIn now again. And at Dynamo Northeast as well. That's the account to tag. All of that will be put in the event chat. Right. Are you ready? Our opening speakers. Lindsay, Phillips and Ben Aung from our headline partner Sage are first up. Now, Ben is the Chief Risk Officer at Sage. His job's a big one. It's to protect the data of their 3 million customers around the world. It means he's accountable for their global cybersecurity, the risks, the ethics, the compliance. Another hat that Ben wears as well is crisis management. So I expect that the pandemic threw up quite a few challenges in his first 6 months as CRO. And what's the other thing? Oh, he loves geeking out. His words. But first, we have Lindsay Phillips, the Executive Vice President of Product Delivery for Sage. Now, he brought all his skills in product engineering and management from many years at Hewlett-Packard to develop the Sage portfolio worldwide. He somehow also found the time in all of that to set up the UTC in Newcastle and be on the board of Dynamo. Yes, these are very busy people, and it's great to hear from them. So please welcome Mr. Lindsay Phillips.
Right, good morning and hi everyone, and welcome to the conference. I'm delighted that Sage have been able to sponsor the 2021 conference, and also that it's part of Digital Leaders Week this week. So we'll have some attendees from outside of the region joining this fabulous showcase of Northeast Tech. There's some brilliant sessions planned today, including a great panel session on equality, diversity and inclusion at 1 o'clock, which I'd recommend you join. And I was reflecting that 2021 is a very special year for Sage. We're 40 years old now, from startup beginnings in the Rose and Crown on the quayside. And next week, we get the keys to our new global headquarters in Cobalt Business Park. I visited last week, and it's a really amazing facility for our future as a great SaaS company. And it reaffirms our commitment to the Northeast, which I think is a brilliant thing. So I'm not going to reflect too much on the past 18 months, other than to say it's great to see so many of you attending the conference virtually. And it's a real testament to the region that despite everything, there's growth and real energy around our sector, and long may it continue to grow our digital futures. So as Charlie said, security and risk remain high up on all of our agendas. So please do give a very warm welcome to Ben Aung, our Chief Risk Officer, who's been described by a group of school children who was recently giving a talk to as having one of the coolest jobs on the planet, being able to hire hackers to test our cyber defenses, which my teams have been on the receiving end of at least once. He's a wealth of experience in both government and private sector roles, and he's going to share some of his insights this morning. So Ben, over to you.
Thanks very much, Linz, and good morning, everyone. I'm super happy to be here today, so thank you very much to Dynamo for inviting me to speak. As you just heard a couple of times, I'm the Chief Risk Officer at Sage. I'm also the Chief Information Security Officer, so I have sort of two hats in the business. Which means I'm responsible for, one, how we manage risks across the group, but also how we protect our products and IT against cyber attack. These are both fascinating jobs, but you have to get used to colleagues not being always that pleased to see you, as I'm effectively Sage's professional pessimist, in-house pessimist. But anyway, I want to use the time that I have today to talk to you and share a few things which are relevant to both parts of my job at Sage. And the common thread is some of the lessons that we've learned during the challenges of last year, and many of which I want to carry forward, even as the pandemic hopefully continues to abate, but where we continue to live with a higher degree of uncertainty than perhaps we were used to before. And so on that basis, I want to talk about preparedness, response and opportunity. And I should say that a lot of things that I will talk about sound very obvious, and they probably are. But what I found is, over the years, it's the things which stare at us in the face, which are often the things that get missed. So worth reflecting on what those are and what we can learn from them. So to start, I want to talk about preparedness. And as you've heard before, Sage, I spent many years in the UK government working on preparedness for the full spectrum of national crises, including pandemics. At a national level, there are so many things that can go wrong. The system, even at the scale that the UK government operates, can never have the capacity to prepare for every eventuality. So inevitably, you need to prioritise, just like you do in any other organisation. In government, we use something called the National Risk Assessment, which is a kind of compilation of all of the most horrible things that could happen to the country. It's not a gentle bedtime read, although I have read it many times throughout the night. But it's the same at Sage. One thing that has become very apparent to me over the years is that so many organisations have business continuity and disaster recovery planning that do nothing but really gather dust, mainly because they sit outside kind of core business. They were developed by a team that isn't integrated. They are kind of an adjacent piece of work, to the things that people spend their day-to-day energy on. And my first lesson, I think, particularly coming out of the pandemic, is to make sure that you've put the upfront investment in terms of thinking really hard about where you put your resources in terms of your preparedness. You absolutely don't need plans for everything, as we've all discovered. You need plans for the things that must keep functioning, irrespective of what's going on in the outside world. At Sage, we've developed a concept called the minimum viable company, which is essentially a selection of our core processes and systems which we need in order to keep our business and customers operational. It's really, it sounds simple, but it's not an easy thing to determine. It invariably involves very difficult choices about where you focus your time and energy and resources, what you absolutely need in order to keep the lights on. And it's the areas where you want to exercise, test, where you want proper scrutiny and oversight from your management, so that you can hold yourself to account that everything that you plan for is done to the utmost level of quality. And I'm sure that like in Sage, over the last year, you've all learned what parts of your businesses or your organisations are the most important. But my question to you, and something to reflect on, is how many of you are actually banked that information? How many of you are going to record what you've learned over the last year about the things that you absolutely need, so that you can use it again in the future, so that you can use it to prepare for anything that might come down the track in the future? I think that's just the question I would pose to you. The second area I want to cover this morning is response. And again, just reflecting on government, where we relied on something called COBRA, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, and which we use to drive the response to national crises. It's quite well known that COBRA can be activated within 60 minutes, day or night, any day of the year. And it has a sort of mythical status in government and certainly in the media. But just to give you a peek behind the curtains, COBRA is really just a selection of secure rooms in the basement of 70 Whitehall in Westminster. But despite that, people come from all over the world to learn about COBRA. We get international visitors from pretty much every country on the planet to come and look around the rooms and talk to people that work there. And you might assume that they're interested in some of the sort of flashy technology that we have, screens everywhere. Something a bit like you might imagine in the situation rooms in the White House. But the secret sauce of COBRA, the thing that people don't really realise, is it actually has nothing to do with the physical facility itself. It's all to do with the people that work there and how it works when it's activated. In particular, how the whole apparatus is geared around information and decision making in times of pressure. And we call this in COBRA the COBRA doctrine. And as I said at the top of the session, it sounds very simple, but then the most important things normally are. And we try to take a similar approach at Sage. We've put a lot of work into how our crisis and emergency procedures operate. What kind of threshold of event would trigger them? Who needs to attend meetings? What role everyone plays? How we escalate. And we focus a lot on how we feed these informations with information. In COBRA, we call this the Common Recognized Information Picture, or CRIP. which is essentially normally just a selection of PowerPoint slides that get put together by the COBRA team before each meeting. But it serves a very important purpose, because the absolute last thing, and I've experienced this myself a number of times, the absolute last thing you don't want in a crisis is different people in the room debating what is actually happening on the ground. You need a single authoritative view. And I think during the last 12 months and more of the pandemic, understanding what is happening nationally, regionally, within your organization, so that you can make the right decision at the right time has been really, really critical, particularly with a whole host of views, some disinformation, the kind of reporting that we've experienced. And I think that's true of almost any major crisis. It's also really important to bottom out who is responsible for what, and this is something we've learned in Sage over the last year, certainly, and something that was really important in government, which minister is accountable for what, who is there in an advisory capacity, and who is there to make decisions. And again, it sounds simple, but it's not always obvious in the moment. For example, who in your business can decide to close an office and send everyone home? Who can actually make that decision? Who in your business can decide to switch off a major piece of your IT infrastructure, or an online service or whatever? Who can make that decision? Who knows that they can make that decision? What happens if your chief executive or any other part of your senior management is on an airplane? When you need to make a decision, what do you do in those circumstances? You absolutely don't want to be trying to work that out in the moment. When maybe even minutes matter. So at Sage, we developed a host of playbooks that we use to guide our crisis management teams through these events. We support them with clear principles around decision making, roles and responsibilities, and then we exercise them and refine them. When we find that things aren't working how we want them to. We're a very large organisation, and it's really important, that we can manage crises across the full gamut of our responsibilities and services, particularly in different geographies and so on. But these lessons are really, really valuable for any organisation of any size. And even if you just produce some checklists, simple checklists that show who does what in different situations, then I would strongly advise that you do that. It's really, really important, and even if you never use them, it makes you feel better and sleep better at night if you have them. And then finally, I wanted to spend a few minutes on opportunity. It's an uncomfortable truth, but sometimes it takes a crisis to spur activity or change. There's a never look a gift horse in the mouth expression. I'm sure there'll be lots of conversations through this conference about how organizations have accelerated their digital transformation journeys through COVID-19. It's certainly something we've talked a lot about at Sage, and I've read a lot about on the internet and in news and so on. How many of us have gone from office-oriented businesses to remote ones, and how much of our technology has shifted as a result? How much have we learned about how organizations actually work that we can use in the future? We all have a perception or preconception about how our businesses work, and actually sometimes it takes a serious event to find out how different things connect to one another, who does what, how decisions are made, what processes really do. In cybersecurity in Sage, we've managed to make, despite all of the disruption, we've managed to make some really great and important strides over the last year. Like many organizations, we've been working towards something called a zero trust model, security model, which is essentially requires continuous verification between devices, users and services, and little or no dependence on the underlying network as a sort of trust bearer. Like many of you or all of you, we moved our entire global IT estate to a remote model in March last year. That came with a few issues, which I'm sure you also experienced. We had to minimize use of our VPN, for bandwidth and capacity reasons. We'd never tested it at the kind of scale that we were forced to in those circumstances. We needed to be able to patch all of our systems and services, no matter where they were or how they were connected, over the internet, whether they were on the VPN or not. We needed added reassurance that only our colleagues could have access to our systems. I mean, Sage is and has been for a long time, a cloud-first business. but we still, like everyone else, have on-premise services which are normally only available over the network, and suddenly we needed to make those services available remotely. How do you run a call center remotely when you've never done so before? And so, in essence, being forced to solve these problems in a matter of days and weeks probably took about 12 months of our plan to deliver Zero Trust. So while highly unfortunate, very stressful and difficult, actually, we were able to cut through and make changes that otherwise would have taken us, a long, long time, and no doubt been much more complex. If I reflect on that, and my general experience with security and business change over the years, most things that are difficult, most hurdles are cultural rather than technical. There's always a reason why something can wait or be deprioritized. Being in a major incident, it's very formative. Where there's a will, there's a way. So I think I'm sure many of you have made changes over the last year that you'll want to bed in and keep. And certainly, if you've made changes that will endure, maybe they will enhance and ultimately improve your businesses as we go forward. The other thing I want to mention is that most people don't have to worry about all of these sorts of things day to day. Most people don't have a job like mine. They focus on more important or different things. But for all of us, the pandemic has been a kind of collective experience. My job is to understand and explain the worst that can happen. As I said, I'm the professional pessimist in the business. But you have to be careful that you don't become the boy who cries wolf. You can't constantly be going around telling everyone that the sky is falling down. You have a finite amount of currency with a business. But given what we've just been through, having a discussion, with the business about the consequences of, say, a major ransomware event should be completely different now. Everyone in your organization has experienced what it feels like to have everything turned upside down. How much time and energy it draws away from your core business, what it feels like to lose some of your core IT capability or suffer a major degradation in performance. It's not about walking around telling everyone horror stories, but people do have short memories. And so you can employ both the intellectual and emotional response that people have experienced during the crisis to help them understand other situations and then to work and prioritize accordingly. So, these things are just, this experience is much more than just, a series of things that you've changed in your business. It's actually how we felt about working in very different ways and how we would feel about working in very different ways in the future. So just to conclude, if I'm to leave you with a few kind of key messages, they would be, use what you've learned about your business over the past year to inform how you prioritize for future crises, even if they are, much less significant, which we all hope that they will be. The information that we've managed to gather and understand more about our organizations is gold dust, really. You don't get that kind of insight in peacetime. Also, really think about how you've made decisions during the last year. How have you made some of the hardest decisions you may have made in your professional life to keep things up and running, to keep people looked after, protected. Turn some of that into a playbook or principles that you can use again and again. Even for much smaller events, you'll find that there will be elements which are reusable again and again and again. What worked and didn't work. And then finally, make a concerted effort to lodge this experience into the memory banks of your organization so you can draw upon it in the future. As I said, it's most likely going to be the most serious, or hopefully the most serious thing that any of us ever do in our professional lives. There's something that we need to remember and learn about that and carry forward. I certainly will, and I've been involved in many such incidents over the years, but this one I think really stands out, and we've all had to do and work in very different ways. It's important that we don't let that drift away. So anyway, that's enough from me. I think my time is pretty much up. So I really appreciate you listening, and if there's time, I can take any questions.
Wow. I feel like I've just had a dose of therapy from Ben Aung there, which was fantastic. I can't quite believe that he describes himself as Sage's in-house pessimist, thinking of things like that. So we've looked at preparedness there, we've looked at response, we've looked at opportunity in a crisis. And I think those soft skills, how you felt about these changes, make us feel rather hopeful for the future if we can get to the root of that. So really interesting stuff there. Thank you so much to Ben Aung and also to Lindsay Phillips as well. Lindsay's going to be here a little later on for our panel in finding new ways of getting people into tech jobs. So now it's to Charlie Hoult, a man who needs, frankly, very little introduction as he has his finger in a lot of pies, recently a lot of cakes, I've heard, with the opening of yet another successful business at Hoult's Yard. This little one woke up during all of that, so she's ready to take in more stuff. Please welcome the chair of Dynamo Northeast, Charlie Hoult.
Charlie, thank you very much. It's so confusing having two Charlies on the panel. And it's great to see Astrid, little Astrid. She's gorgeous. And thank you very much for Ben. I was particularly sort of thinking as he was talking about how COVID has been a collective experience when for so long the internet has been sort of atomizing our lives, doing different things. So there's a kind of thought piece there. And just as a little local hook, because I like to bring things back to our local context, talking about the Cobra Committee, there is actually a guy who lives on Fern Avenue in Jesmond who I bump into in Waitrose, who was on the Cobra Committee, who is on the Cobra Committee, a public health specialist who did a lot of work around the Russian radioactive poisonings, for instance. So it's not that remote thing that happens just in London. Some of the public health specialists in the Northeast are actually on the Cobra Committee and feeding in. But so that's fascinating to me. Welcome to everybody. I think we've got about 500 people registered today. There were 100 of you, loyal listeners and folk on the wires just as I came on stage. So it's great to see you and welcome. Thanks very much to all our guests, all our speakers, all our sponsors, without whom none of this would be possible. And just to reiterate, Dynamo's mission to grow the Northeast tech economy through collaboration, innovation, skills, and building our reputation as a place where tech gets done. We're all doing these things collectively together, which are hard when you do them individually. And it was a great reminder that we've been doing this this is the 8th year. We're building some momentum. We're just about to sign off, although we have some runoff money from the European Regional Development Fund. We've been able to use that to cash against some North of Tyne Mayor's money. And it looks like we will have about £750,000 to employ people for the next 3 years, £750,000 additional money every year for the next 3 years. So it's going to be really exciting and no less a responsibility to use that money wisely to grow the Northeast tech economy. But as a bit of an aside, anyone who is interested in getting involved and working for Dynamo, we are about to recruit. I had hoped the money was going to be coming in for July starts. It now looks like October starts. If we can fast track that, we will. But if you have some capability and interest in growing the Northeast tech economy, please do get in touch. Our access point into supporting the region thus far has been quite heavily on what we call clusters, the niche subsectors of industry in the region that have growth potential on a global scale. We've been involved in fintech, connected construction. We've got a very growing, understandably, cluster around health and hence getting Murray Ellender as our keynote today, who's got a really, really interesting platform that has changed the way that people access general practitioners for primary care. But we have the potential to grow, to target different clusters, whether that's the rural economy, aging, advanced manufacturing, and we'd really like to be able to support tech folk in each of these niches so that we can get everyone together and work on some of the shared problems collectively. But I thought that today it would be particularly interesting to think beyond COVID. And for me, I have always been calling the V-shaped economic growth pattern of a graph of our economy with a strong rebound, and all the stats say that the rebound is going to be yet stronger than even was predicted. So for me, it's about how should we be ready for that rebound? And as a region, our mindset has been, and I think I still see in some of the narrative, about managing decline and some of the challenges we've had as a region, and regeneration, which is some kind of rebirth from a mythical past when everything was okay. But I'd like us to more so be thinking about the overheating of our sector, with, coming into COVID, the highest amount of people employed in the Northeast since 1973. That's eons ago. Growth is going really well, and we certainly see that in the vast majority of the tech sector, with our skills and talent pipeline being absolutely one of the most challenging aspects of managing and growing our tech economy in the Northeast today. And one of the big tranches of money that we have for North of Tyne Combined Authority is to build a talent management program, and that involves looking at boomerang Geordies, the footloose talent, people who have an inkling about the region, who might want to move from the very expensive and quite pressure cooker housing market still of the south of England to our glorious open spaces, less queues, cheaper prices in the northeast, but also how we can harness international interest, inward investment and the like, how we can grow partnerships between education, apprentice providers and us as growth companies to build the skills, to try and get that supply demand aspect, to get more people from different walks of life. I was at a presentation earlier in the week about ex-services. There's the career switchers from some of the sectors that have been damaged by COVID. Last year, we were talking about pilots and the pilots union working with Sunderland University, for instance, on retraining some of those skilled practitioners. And I think it will be around cultural priorities as well, and how all of these are absolutely prime for the type of collective action that we get involved with in Dynamo, better together and working where individually in a company, even if particularly in small companies, if you're 5 or 6 people, how do you access apprenticeships? But also in the big players, the SAGEs, the HMRCs, the DWPs, those huge IT departments, how can we work together to give a great experience to our apprentices in the sector? And that's not just on the tech side. So ideal for collective action. I hope that is a spur, one of the spurs to get you guys to continue to support us at Dynamo, because some of our new and exciting big budget money does depend on match funding from continued membership, continued sponsorship and continued support and engagement. And it's particularly to get people into the sector. There are lots of jobs at the mid-level, but it was an interesting stat in our talent program, the pitch that we put to North of Tyne, that only 4% of the jobs in the Northeast advertised on LinkedIn are entry level. So I do commend everybody to help support us on the talent pipeline, but also to look to your own business and the way that you might be able to bring on board some of the less experienced talent And it's been a theme of the last fortnight or 3 weeks for me, as I've been bringing on 5 different interns into the company, not necessarily from the tech side, but it's been very exciting to work with people from Newcastle University, Exeter University, Bristol University, individuals who have come to the region to get involved. And it's been very fulfilling, exciting for me. And we have some sandwich students here for the year ahead. There are lots of sandwich students still available because last year's sandwich year was completely decimated by COVID. And one of my interns who's come on board for 12 months is living in a house in Newcastle of other students who've had to roll forward to take their 3rd year, missing out on that placement year. And there are a lot, the rest of the women in her house have not got placements to go to. So if you're interested in getting in placements, do get in touch, because there's some really fantastic brainy talent out there who are just excited to be getting stuck into our sector. And that's a brilliant stream and segue into people getting involved. And my student of 2 years ago has just started back at the company after graduating. So please support us, continue to support us, continue to share the stories of Dynamo. And as ever, as John F. Kennedy said, ask not what we can do for you, but how you can get more involved to bring our brilliant sector, growth sector, to the fore, and to help the rest of the region out of the pandemic and into an exciting rebound. And I look forward, hope, in reality, to see you all at our awards ceremony in October, where we can credit some of the action and excitement in the sector and have a proper shindig. So I look forward to seeing you soon. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Cheers for now. Bye.
A proper shindig? Of course. Anytime. Well, that was pretty exciting news. £750,000 each year awarded to Dynamo for the next 3 years. So starting from October. Yeah, this is exciting. And talking about that talent pipeline, that's something we'll get onto later. There are some great panels coming up with Dynamo 21 this year where we're going to look at exactly that issue. So we want to hear your thoughts. Get the conversation going. Use that chat menu as well. Thanks again to Charlie Hoult. It's great to hear that politicians now have no choice but to hear what the North East has to say and hopefully back it up with even more regional investment, more support. It's time now to head over to the session room that I mentioned earlier. So use the session tab on the left-hand menu, and it's where we're going to start with Dr. Murray Ellender. This will be fascinating if you've been using eConsult. Follow it as well with the health tech panel. So he'll be staying there. We'll have some other people brought in on that. And health tech, of course, a major driving force in the last year. So I'm going to give you and myself a few seconds just to switch over to sessions.